Oh, this is exciting. I've got the thumbs up from the projection room. That's good. So I guess we can start. Hooray! Uh, I know I know it's early in terms of day. I think we've got 100 and odd people registered. So I'm assuming everyone else will come down once they've finished checking in their files or checking out whatever it is or something. So we should see things fill up a little bit over the evening. But yeah, welcome back. It's great to be back at the DCA again. I was working out last night. We did the Edinburgh show, and last night was, I think, our 23rd Games Talks Live event. So tonight is our 24th, which is quite cool to be doing 24 of these. So thank you if you've supported these over the years. If you don't know me, I'm Colin MacDonald. I started these about 5 years ago. I think everyone knows the story about it was basically a way of getting a couple of grand out of Universal Music to spend behind the bar about 5 years ago. And the event went down really well, and I've never felt able to not do it again ever since. So we do it about every 6 months, Dundee, Edinburgh and Glasgow. The point is to bring the industry out and to get everyone mingling. One of the things I was conscious of was that I would often only meet people that I lived in the same city or certainly the same country as, but I'd only ever meet them in San Francisco or Cologne or places like this. It was just ridiculous. So this was originally meant as an excuse just to get people in the same, in Scotland and certainly the same city, out and mingling and get some interesting speakers up for us all to learn some stuff and as a way of following up with them. However, the fact that we've ended up doing it 3 nights in a row, it also means it's a great excuse for people outside the local industry to come and visit and meet everyone, because we're renowned as an industry. People want to come and meet Scottish game developers. So having something like this, and the same as Scottish Games Week a couple of weeks ago, it's just a great excuse for someone to go, great, I fancy a trip up to Scotland. I get to go up and I get to meet everyone. So I know there's a bunch of people. Some of them are speaking, some of them are not. There's people that have come up that are not speaking, but they've come up from south of the border just to meet everyone. So as ever, the format with these things is lightning talks. So everyone will just be on for 10 minutes each. We'll try and keep it to schedule, unlike the start. We'll try and keep it to schedule because we've got quite a lot of talks we want to get through. But I really like the format of the 10-minute talks because it means we can cover a huge array of things, whether it's programming or design or art or business or finance, whatever it is. We're all in the same industry. It's all relevant to us, even if we can't use there was AI programming techniques last night. I mean, I'm not going to use that, but it's interesting to learn 10 minutes about it. And then we have tons of breaks. So there's a break every 3 talks basically, and that's the opportunity to follow up with people. And don't feel nervous about approaching any of the speakers. They've come to a networking event. They've put themselves up on stage. They want people to come and speak to them about their work, to find out more about them. So do just chat to any of the speakers that you're interested in and want to find out a bit more about. And likewise each other. Part of the point is hopefully we don't just stick in our groups of folk we already know. The fact that we're going to be jumping back and forth between here and the bar, hopefully we're going to end up sitting or standing next to different people each time. So do make a point of saying hello to someone you don't already know. And if you see someone on their own that's come along maybe for the first time, great opportunity to get to know them as well. We have, thanks to our sponsors, we have managed to do the drinks tokens again, which is great. But obviously where alcohol's involved in games events, just look out for everyone else. If you see anyone that doesn't look comfortable, just look after them or give myself or any of the volunteers a shout, and let's just make sure everyone has a safe and fun evening. We've got a whole bunch of talks. A couple of these have moved around. One of them's dropped out. One of them's come in. So it's roughly to schedule. We'll keep this up on the breaks as we go, so you can see who's coming up next. But basically, we have 5 amazing blocks of speakers, and then we finish with Wi-Fi Wars, who have travelled up from down south specially to do this show 3 nights in a row. We did it last night in Edinburgh. One, it was hilarious, and 2, I came second overall. So I'm gunning for first place tonight. So everyone had better do their best job if you're going to keep me off the top spot tonight. If you are watching online, thank you for joining us. Obviously, you can't chat to each other in the networking breaks, but if you go to our Discord, you can at least chat to other people that are watching along. So to get to the Discord in a browser, punch in discord.gamestalks.live, and that will redirect you to the Discord where you can chat with anyone else that's watching at the same time. I do need to thank our amazing sponsors for making this happen. Now that we're taking on posh venues like cinemas, I can't quite believe we've got a cinema, but how cool is that? Posh venues like cinemas, and we've got a coach going between the cities to transport speakers around, and drinks tokens and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't happen without the support of the sponsors, because that's where the bulk of the costs come from. So I'd like to give a massive thank you to all of our sponsors. So that's Pocket Size Hands, Blazing Griffin, 4J Studios, Johnston Carmichael, Ninja Kiwi, No Code, Rivet Games, Team Terrible, Wigan, and I suppose I'd better thank Glasgow City Council. I'm not sure whether it counts that they're helping tonight, but they've supported the series of events. So please give a warm thanks to all of our amazing sponsors. The drinks tokens that you hopefully all got when you came in have all of our sponsors' names on them, so just remember who's basically bought you a pint when you redeem them and hand over one of those drinks vouchers. We always raise a couple of quid for charity at these things. I think over the years, I've not totaled it up, but it is in the tens of thousands of pounds. We've raised for some amazing causes like Special Effect, the NHS, Ukrainian Red Cross, and last time was the Glasgow Kids Hospital. With everything that's going on in the world, I thought it would make sense this time to support War Child, which is a charity that helps kids in conflict zones. We had David from the charity up last night speaking. He can't be with us today, but we'll replay it. We took a recording of his talk, so we'll replay that. That's the one talk that will be pre-recorded tonight, so you can find out more about the amazing work that War Child do. The way this works, if you've not been here before, is we have a raffle. We'll hold a raffle at the end of tonight. We held a mini one yesterday, and we'll do another one tomorrow. So even if you don't win today, or even if you do, there'll be another raffle tomorrow where there'll be more prizes raffled. Basically, you donate at the Just Giving page. So you can go to raffle.gamestalks.live, or you can scan that QR code. That'll take you to a Just Giving page. For every £5 you donate, we'll allocate you one raffle ticket. So donate £10, you'll get two raffle tickets. Donate £50, you'll get 10, and so on. And then at the end of the night, we do the wheel of names. So we basically put all the tickets in there and just spin the wheel to assign the tickets. The important thing is, when you make the donation, please, please, please leave your name and email address, because the number of times we've spun the wheel and it's come up with anonymous, that doesn't help us get the prizes to the right place. So make sure you leave your name at the very least, even if not email, because then we can track you down. So the prizes we have got on offer for tonight. So overall, over the week, we have 9 copies of Fights in Tight Spaces, thanks to Mode 7. We have 9 copies of Bish Bash Bots from Firestoke. We've got 6 copies of Total War 3 Warhammer, thanks to Creative Assembly. We have got a PlayStation 4 pack of games, thanks to P-Cube, that came up 6 months ago and spoke to us. P-Cube have also donated a Switch pack of games and a PS5 pack of games. Super Rare Games, that were also up here 6 months ago, have donated this pack of Switch games. They're actually sitting down there. Hooded Horse have donated 2 Steam packs of 3 of their games. Focus Entertainment, that again have been a couple of times up to Dundee to speak at these events, have donated 5 packs of these 4 fine games. Most of these are on Steam, unless I've said otherwise. And then finally, Yogscast Games, the publishing arm of the Yogscast TV channel, have donated 5 publisher keys. So this gives you access to everything they've ever done and everything they ever will. I didn't try and add it up too accurately, but it's basically thousands of pounds worth of games up for grabs that these publishers have let us raffle in aid of War Child. So please do, I'll just put the raffle link back up. Please do get some raffle tickets in and give money to a really good cause. I think that's everything I need to run through. One of the things we tried last time was not have me on stage all night, because everyone gets sick fed up of me, and there's also usually something else going wrong that I need to try and fix, or at least panic about someone else trying to fix. So instead, we experimented having a shy, retiring little guy say a couple of words as your compere. And it turns out he did an amazing job, and so much so we had to have him back. So your compere for this evening is quite well known in these parts, I think, from running the Hub World drinks meetups and the quizzes. Please welcome back to the stage Mr. Fergus Coyne.
Thank you, Colin. Hello, Dundee. Yeah, as Colin said, I'm Fergus. I'm an artist and all-round events helper. But you guys don't want to hear about me. You guys came to see some Games Talks. So, are we ready to Games Talks live? Hell yeah. So, I'm going to welcome to the stage our first speaker tonight. It's Damien Isaac from Go Testify. He describes himself as a strategic person who has a flair for the creativity, and he's a strategic customer success manager. So, can we please give a big hand to Damien Isaac?
So firstly, apologies to those who have already heard this yesterday and the horrible accent. My talk today is going to be on how to leverage your market to actually succeed. As Fergus says, I'm the Customer Success Manager at Go Testify. I've been in the role for about 3 years, and what my job is to do is it's to actually assist the studios of all shapes and sizes with guidance on how to align their decision making and really maximize the potential of their titles that are released. Okay. While we're here in Scotland, we're not just doing these talks, we are also out here to promote a new program. And as I said yesterday, I've got to be very careful in doing that. We have a new indie program to help small studios and hobbyists with free play testing, and anybody who does want to avail of that, they're free to check it out here via this link. So if you do want to have a look, or if you want to have a chat post the meetings today, don't hesitate to give me a shout. What we're really here to talk about, though, is why it's important to validate early and why it's also important to validate often. Okay? Now, when you're in game development, there is a lot of different types of emotions the players can actually go through playing your game. And you'll see these different types of emotions here that are on screen. On the left-hand side, you're going to have that real frustration that players have. And when that does creep into your game, that's where people do move away from it. On the right-hand side, excuse me, you have that feeling of this is absolutely epic. And that's what you really want from people who are actually experiencing your game, because that's where they're more likely to talk about it to their friends, family, and anybody else who would actually listen. Now, validating early and often will actually save you time and budget throughout your development process. Okay? Games nowadays, on average, are taking 2 to 3 years to actually make, some longer in certain scenarios. And there's over 4,000 games being released across multiple platforms every single day. So that when games are going out into the market, it's already completely saturated. So you really want to make sure that your game is singing at all aspects and that players are actually enjoying it. Another reason why it's important to actually validate early and often is because validation helps you align your internal decision making. Throughout your development processes, I'm sure there's been a lot of creative decisions that you've had internally where there might be some conflict. But by listening to your market, they're the ones who are actually going to be spending their hard-earned money purchasing these games, so they're the ones that you should be actually taking insight from. Destiny is actually a perfect example of this. The game was 4 years in development before it was released, and it had over 150 tests prior to release. That game's gone on to make over $500 million in game revenue. Now, validating and iterating against your implementation. And another great example is God of War. Now, God of War, whenever it was in its development, like any other studio, they had problems with their game. And through playtesting, they were able to take on a certain new aspect of the game that wouldn't previously have seen the light of day. So anybody who knows God of War knows that it's always been an action-based game, but the developers and the creators, they wanted to introduce more story into the game. Now, in their earlier playtests that they had actually conducted, players weren't feeling a cohesion between the story and the gameplay, especially in the boat scenes, because they felt it was very dull. Now, throughout playtesting, they were able to really make sure that both aspects came together, and it was one of the most enjoyable experiences of that game because it's where you were able to see more emotion from Kratos' character, and it was actually quite funny. The next slide is I'm going to share with you. It's just a quick minute and a half video. It was a GDC talk from 2019 from the God of War team, where they're actually discussing their playtest and how important it was to their development process. Let's hope it works. It's about midway down. It's about midway down now, if it's working. All right, it's not going to work. We'll just leave it. It was there yesterday, but so it's, if you go to, it's in alphabetical order, you'll see a G. Yeah. We'll get there eventually. Good to see this won't work.
It's one of my favorite stories. And also, like Kratos, I have a pretty good story about the boat. So let me paint you a picture real quick. We'd just come off a play test where we had an issue with the docks. You just couldn't use the docks or the beaches, so once you got on the boat, we had to help the playtesters off the boat every single time they wanted to get off, because we had to do this like debug flying. It was terrible. And so this whole test was a wash. We couldn't get any feedback on the boat. And so we started preparing for this next test, because we were putting in these boat stories for the first time, just like the one you saw. And this was a big moment for the team, because it'd be the first time that we'd be seeing people react to this intended experience that we had for the boat. And so we're about 2 hours into this play test, and the first player that got on the boat was rowing up next to a dock, and then they just sat there. They just sat next to the dock. And there were people watching this back at the studio, and they were like, it was kind of heartbreaking. It was like, oh, I guess it's broken again. Like, you know, what are we going to do? I guess we have to wait for the next play test. But then we realized when the next person came in, the docks weren't broken. They got off the boat just fine. So what was this person doing? And so we interviewed this person, and they stopped the boat right next to the dock because they were waiting for Kratos to finish his story. And so for us, that was kind of the moment that we realized that like this boat was fulfilling that intended experience, and that people could enjoy this boat without having the combat.
So you can see here from this video that even a game studio like the ones that created God of War, there was a fear in having people play their game throughout development. But once people were actually able to go through and play and actually have the intended experience that they want, it was so rewarding for them, and they were able to take a lot from it. Now, I wanted to talk about a success story which is more local, because the two that I've spoken about, being Destiny and God of War, are AAA studios so far. So a more local success story here to Scotland is a game studio called Sad Owl Studios. So they released a game recently called Viewfinder. Viewfinder has gone on to be a great success so far. Now, they are a very, very small studio, but what they did well whenever they came to Go Testify was they really wanted to put players at the heart of their actual decision making, and they wanted to hear and feel what players were actually experiencing when playing their game. Now, they took on the feedback really, really well, and they reiterated against the changes that they made to make sure that they were putting out a better gameplay experience. So this game has gone on to be the third most successful demo in the biggest and most attended Steam Next Fest to date. It had over 100k downloads in the first few months, and as of Tuesday, they were nominated for 2 awards, which will be announced at GDC, which is Best New Indie and Best Debut Game. When I first started at Go Testify, which was 3 years ago, I was coming into a job that I didn't really know too much about, which was user research, play testing. It wasn't something that I had specifically done before. Now, when I searched it online, there were so many different methodologies in research that it terrified me. And I did want to quit on my first day of working in this new job for the fear of, I'm going to get found out here and I don't know what I'm doing. But what we do at Go Testify is we remove all areas of complications, and we do stick to a certain motto, which is validate a single layer at a time, remove the confusions from the early aspects of your game, then allow people to find the fun within your game. Once they have found fun, it's how do you retain and how do you monetize against those players. They're small building blocks that we use with all studios of shapes and sizes, whether it's a AAA or it's a hobbyist, and it does work. Anybody who does want to talk market validation or indie support, as I say, don't hesitate to grab me after this. I'm more than happy to help and chat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Damien. So up next, we have Peter Lewin from Wigan. He's a video games lawyer and partner with over a decade of experience in the video games and entertainment industry, and he's here to speak about all the games deal pitfalls and war stories. So can we please welcome to the stage Peter Lewin.
Hello. So yeah, my name is Pete Lewin. I'm a partner in the video games team at the law firm Wigan down in London. Yeah, I've been a video games lawyer for a decade. I work with indie studios, AAA, tech companies, esports companies, everything kind of revolving around games. And I mainly do commercial stuff and regulation and IP. So I'm gonna talk to you about some war stories that my clients have actually been through, and hopefully we can learn from them and avoid them. So to make my life more difficult, I'm gonna do this in a pick and mix fashion. So all you're going to get is these 4 things, and then we're going to do hands up, see which ones we cover. So we've got 3 little words: problematic ports, not so convenient termination rights, and do go chasing financial waterfalls. And last night we did 3 little words and not so convenient termination rights. By the way, 3 little words is not I love you. I thought that afterwards. I was like, that is not what that's about. Okay, so just show of hands. This is all you're getting to base it off of. So 3 little words. All right, no one. You're all bored of it. Okay, problematic ports. I should say you've got to put your hands up for at least 2. Okay, cool. Termination rights. Okay, and waterfalls. Okay, cool. So it's the different ones. Okay, so the problematic ports. So this is what you don't get to see. Whoa, what value? All right, so problematic ports. So in this situation, typical dev-pub relationship, skewing on the indie side, indie dev, indie pub. And in that agreement, there's a bunch of clauses present. So the first one is that the developer was going to own all the IP in the game. So fantastic. And the publisher had the ability to obviously publish the game, but they also had the ability to develop and publish ports of the game. But that was subject to the developer's prior approval. So you've got prior approval right in there. You go, great. And then the third bullet point here, you've got some fancy IP wording which says that all the IP rights and the ports basically go back to the developer. So you go, fantastic, all those things sound really, really great. So anyway, the game came out on PC, it did well, so then the publisher was like, let's make some ports. So they made some ports, but they didn't make them internally, they used a third-party porting house. But then eventually things started going wrong. The publisher wasn't really, well, it basically wasn't paying any money over, so the developer said, I want to get out of this deal, I want to terminate. And they actually had pretty good grounds to terminate. They crafted a material breach argument, and they wanted to terminate the deal. So that was fine. But in the process of talking about termination, the question about, okay, how are you actually going to assume control of these ports which have been developed by a third party? How are you going to take them over? And for PC, it was easy. We made them. We had all the code. We had the assets. We really just needed the publisher to transfer the game to our platform account on Steam, and that's kind of it. But for the console ports and the other ones, we didn't have practical control over any of the code, any of the assets, or anything like that. So we automatically had a practical problem of, okay, we're going to terminate with this publisher. Publisher doesn't have any of that stuff. How are we going to get that? But we also had a legal problem. And that's because there was no porting agreement between the publisher and the porting house. So because there's no porting agreement between the porting studio and the publisher, there could be no IP transfer. And because the publisher didn't get any IP rights, they couldn't give them to us. So you're going well, Pete, that's crazy. Point C here says that they get all the rights in the port. No, it says they get any rights that the publisher has in the ports. And the publisher didn't have any rights in the ports. So they couldn't transfer anything over to the developer. So yeah, it seems kind of crazy, but in that situation, because there's no agreement in place with the porting studio, the developer didn't get any rights in the ports automatically. And then when we wanted to terminate this deal, it was basically a big old mess because we had to get the third-party porting studio involved a bunch of time, stress, extra money, and that's not really what you want to go through when you're already in a stressful situation of terminating your deal with your publisher. So as a dev, you can rely to an extent on what's in your publishing deal, but you can't just rely on that. The best belt and braces approach is to make sure that your publisher is actually doing what they should be doing, which is making sure that they get all the rights to anything they make about your game. And that's that one. Don't do that one. Not so convenient termination rights. No. All right. So financial waterfalls. TLC fans in this thing? No. Okay. So, oh no, wrong one. So financial stuff's important. Pay attention to these sections in your agreements. It sounds really obvious, but they're quite confusing, and sometimes they're intentionally quite confusing. So in any deal, whether it's a publishing deal or co-development or anything, you're going to have a bunch of your friendly definitions like those up here on stage. So you've got gross revenue, net revenue, deductions, the publishing costs, and the royalty, and the rev share. And I could talk for ages about what should be included in these definitions and what should not be, and things you might want to build in to protect yourself from, I don't know, an overexcited publisher recouping a bunch of costs they maybe shouldn't be doing. But I'm not going to be talking about that. Instead, I want to focus on recoup and how tiny changes in the wording of a contract can really impact how much money lands in your pocket as a developer. So we're going to go through 4 scenarios. We've got pictures for all of them. And we're going to make some assumptions. So the first assumption is that, let's say there's 150K for development costs, publishing costs, whatever. And then the game makes 200K in month 1 gross revenue. And let's assume in some fanciful world there's the 70-30 rev split. So those are our assumptions. They're going to go through all the four deals with those. And I should say that none of these are right or wrong, but they're all just different, and they can be subtly differently worded in a contract, so you've got to pay attention. So the first one is what I call the 100% recoup model, and surprise, surprise, This basically means that all the money that the game makes, 100% of it is going to go towards recoup towards the publisher. So that would mean 200k comes in, 150k goes to the publisher, and then whatever's left just gets split between the parties 70-30. So that's how much would land in your bank accounts. The next one, I call it a tiered approach. So that might be, maybe the publisher gets a kind of increased rev share up until the point at which they recoup, and then maybe it flips. So you might actually have 70% going towards the publisher, and then once they've recouped, 70% goes towards the developer. So in this case, just looking at month one, 200k come in, and then it'd be a 70-30 split, but in favor of the publisher. And then that would mean 140k would go to them, and 60k to you. So you can already see the difference in the amount going to the dev right there. So then you've got a hybrid recoup model. And these aren't official titles, by the way. These are just things that I'm calling them. So this idea is that you'd have a percentage of gross revenue that just goes towards the recoup. And then you'd have a percentage which is split according to the rev share. So let's say you had a hybrid model where 70% was going towards recoup. That would mean 140k would go back to the publisher. And then your remaining 30% would be split just between the parties in a 70-30 share. So that would mean 42k would go to the dev and 18k would go to the publisher. So again, difference going to the developer. And then this one, which is not my favorite, and which is, I don't know, devs are quite often surprised when I tell them this is what their contract means and how it's written, but this is when the recoup is made solely from the developer's rev share. So the idea here being that it'd be a 70-30 split, 30% would go to the publisher, and then you go, okay, great, 70% to the developer. So you think they'd be getting 140k, but that's not true, because that 70%, all of those royalties, is going to recoup for the publisher. So in that situation, the developer is actually going to get 0 for month one. You generally don't want this one. This is usually the bad one. So again, the differences here, it can come down to a couple of different words in a contract. It could be the difference between the development funding will be recouped from gross revenues to the development funding will be recouped from the developer share of net revenues. It can literally be like that, and that would be the difference between option 1 and option 4, which could be huge. I'm not there yet. And yeah, these examples, they're all worked out on the basis that the game actually makes more money than it costs, which won't be true for a lot of games, at least not in month 1. So if you have different numbers here, the options are going to be like stacked. They're going to be more or less favorable. But again, none of these are right or wrong. It's all going to come down, just like the rev share percentage. People often ask me, like, what's a typical rev share split? And I say a lot comes down to the deal, the risk, the parties, how experienced you are, how risky the game is. So none of these are right or wrong, but they just have different impacts on how the waterfall works. So please do pay attention to the definitions in your contract, and then think about how any money coming into the top of your funnel is going to trickle down, how it's going to recoup, and how much is going to end up in your pocket. Ask for a worked example. If they won't give you a worked example, then go, hey, publisher, this is how I think it's going to work. Is this how it's actually going to work? And then they say yes or no, and then you're happy. So that's it. That's all from me. If you got any questions, I'm here for the rest of the night, and I'm also in Glasgow tomorrow. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Peter. I don't know about anyone else, but that really stressed me out about paying attention to contracts. We're going to have our first break of the night, so you're all free to go through to the bar area and spend those drinks tokens. We're going to have a short break for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to all come back through here. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Rivet Games and Speech Graphics as well. There's all of them. It would be good as well if... I keep getting electric shocks all day. It'd be good as well if we could put the raffle QR code up on the screen. We'll leave that on throughout the break, and you guys can tune in when you want. But yeah, we're going to take our first break, so cheers.
man. Hi, I'm Phoebe. Nice to meet you. Bit of backstory about me. I've been in the industry for just under 3 years now. I actually didn't come from a traditional games background. I studied film and media at university and kind of realized partway through my degree that I was taking any opportunity I could to make my assignments about video games. And I had that realization of, maybe this transcends a hobby for me, and I could see this as being something I do for a living. I'd love to help make games happen. But I didn't really know what kind of role I would be suited to or what roles were out there. So I decided that after I finished my degree, I would try and find a job within the games industry. So after a year of unsuccessful job hunting, because it's never that easy, is it? I found a job as a QA, and I was just so ecstatic to be there. I was so happy to be included in the industry and to have finally made it. And then about just over a year ago, I was asked if I would like to do some design work for a game I was testing. And I was like, sure, yeah, I'd love to try. And I did a dry run, and that went well. And then I got offered a position. And I'm just so grateful and so happy and just beyond incomprehensible that people would have that faith and that belief in me. And yeah, I love it. I'd said I'm worried. I'm really worried that I am not learning fast enough, that there's too many gaps in my knowledge, I am not doing good enough, and that I will eventually, inevitably, let down those people that put their faith in me. And I thought that maybe this imposter syndrome would get better over time and I would not be so worried. But actually what happened was I just had ammunition to feed it. And it would be like, do you remember that thing you did 6 months ago? Useless. The worst thing. And it's like the backseat driver from hell. So, yeah, I was having a conversation with some colleagues. And yeah, I just overthink. I've always been an overthinker, and I'm hoping this is relatable. And I'm really sorry if it is, because wouldn't it be nice, just for once, to roll over and go to sleep at night and not have to overthink every possibly inconceivably wrong thing you did in a day? Right? So I was having a conversation with some colleagues about my overthinking and my worry. And one of them turns to me and says, "Have you tried exercise?" 1, rude. Clearly, I'm the peak of physical fitness. I'm the one on the left. And 2, I hate exercise. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it. I'm a hazard to myself and others. I have the A&E history to prove it. But they were pretty insistent that it helps their brain and like it's good for them and to stop this unhelpful thinking. And I was like, okay. So I rejoined the gym. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a very tumultuous history with the gym where I've stopped and started many times over the years, starting from when I was about 12 and could choose it as an elective during Friday's PE session. And I would always choose it because, fun fact about the gym, you can't be chosen last for a team of 1. In theory. So I'm back at the gym after having this conversation with my colleague, and I am reminded exactly why I cancelled all those times. It's loud, it's crowded, it's got weird lighting, and people are hissing. Why are people hissing? What about heavy objects turns you into a snake? I really need to know. And I'm not only overthinking, but I'm now not only just overthinking about how I'm not good enough, but how my body is not good enough, and how the person on the treadmill next to me keeps staring over at me, worried I'm going to keel over with the amount I'm wheezing. So I'm thinking I'm never going to go back. This is awful. That is until I get to this machine. This is the Concept 2 Rowing Ergometer, or ROERG. I hardly know erg. It weighs in at just under 60 pounds. It has 10 different resistance settings. And if you take it out onto the water, it glides gracefully. To the bottom, doesn't float, don't try it. Yeah, so it's at this point I'm going to ask for some audience participation. So if the guys could just bring in the rowing machine, that'd be great. I'll ask someone. I don't have a rowing machine, but I wouldn't mind a show of hands if you've ever used one of these machines or anything like it. Cool, great. Now keep your hand up if you've ever played the fish game on one of these machines. Okay, cool. Okay, so for those who don't know, this is the fish game. You play as this fish. Your goal is to eat the small fish and the striped fish to get points and to avoid being eaten by the big fish with teeth, or you'll lose points. You row to go up, you stop rowing to go down, and you have 4 minutes to get the best score you can. And I am at this workout from hell, and I'm playing this fish game, and I'm no longer thinking I'm not good enough. I'm thinking about how in all the times I have stopped and started going to the gym, I've always managed to pick up the fish game. And I've gone to a lot of different gyms, like across the country, like even in England as well. And this has always been there, but I never see anyone else play it, and I've never heard anyone talk about it. So I started to wonder, like, if anyone knew any more about it. So I did what anyone would do. I took to the internet. And actually couldn't find all that much about it online. Through scouring through some old manuals for these machines, I discovered that the fish game was introduced in the PM3 model, which was released in 2003, which actually makes the fish game 20 years old this year. Amazing, happy 20th anniversary, fish game, woo, yeah. What fortuitous timing on my part. It's almost like I planned it. I really did not. But yeah, I couldn't find much more about it, and I was still really curious, so I took the next step, and I contacted customer services. Yes, I really did this. Because I wanted to know who developed it. Was it in-house? Was it external? Like, could they tell me anything else about it? And I didn't expect a reply, but I did get one by the lovely Nathan. And Nathan told me that the fish game was developed in-house by one of their engineers called John Williams, who has retired a couple years back. This is the photo they posted on his retirement. Isn't he dapper? What guy? But yeah, as for more details, the links that Nathan sent were just things I'd already found. But I was curious about that high score, because I'm not competitive in the slightest, but I must beat it. And I also really wanted to know if Nathan knew if John had ever created any other games. And Nathan told me that, to their knowledge, John never created any other games. And also his score is 3,240. That's a bit of a comparison. That's my high score, so practically there. I'm like this close. But yeah, I did try and see if I could hunt down John Williams online, see if he had any kind of social media presence. But with a name like John Williams, I didn't have much luck. So I didn't really want to bother Nathan with it, especially since John's retired. So let's just all hope that he's just gone fishing. So what's the point? Why should you care about the fish game? Well, maybe you don't have to care about the fish game, and maybe I was just given 10 minutes and a captive audience and allowed to speak about whatever I wanted. Suckers! No, I do have a point. The point is, the fish game's flawed. For one thing, half the people, or more than half the people who've ever used those machines, didn't even know of its existence. The other thing is, it doesn't take into account the 10 different resistance settings, so someone could be breaking their back, sweating, pushing all their willpower into it, and the person next to them is just rowing merrily along, getting the same score. And I don't care. I still love the fish game. I would defend it to anyone. And that gives me hope. It gives me hope that people will not care so much about the imperfections in my work, will not care that I'm learning by doing, just as John did. So what I would like to ask all of you is to go out there, is to one, be kinder to yourselves, please, and two, go out there and find your fish game. Go find that game or film or piece of media that inspires you, maybe isn't the most genre redefining piece of work, isn't well renowned, but lives in the recesses of your brain as something that you hold with a fondness that impacted you in some way. So go out there, go make, go do, go learn, go play, and most importantly, go fish. Thank you for listening.
just please grab one of the event staff and we'll sort it out and we'll keep you out of the films and things. Well, it's filled out with more people than out. It's really good. So we're going to get straight into our next block of talks. Next up, we have Ryan Milne, a business advisory senior manager at Johnston Carmichael, and he's been there for 10 years, and he's speaking all about the role of an advisor in a company growth journey. So please give a round of applause for Ryan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. We're delighted to sponsor. I should have said that last night, Colin. I got my knuckles wrapped for not mentioning that last night. So thanks for the opportunity. We're delighted to sponsor. I've got an AMA up on the screen there, so if you want to take a snap of the QR code, and I will see the questions that are coming in. And if you don't ask good questions, I've got 3 or 4 slides that include travel, dogs, and somehow an accountant fits in amongst that. So it's up to you. So one of the questions I got asked last night while you're all typing away was, what was my favourite game? So apologies for anyone who was here last night. And the answer I came up with that I got another rap on the knuckles last night for was I went for Overcooked. Because during lockdown, me and my partner, Kelly, found that game, and it's probably the only time that it's been safe for us to be throwing items of food and stuff around the kitchen to each other and not want to, like, with knives and so on. So it actually worked. It worked really well for us. And then the other one was surrounding valuing a company. And yeah, there was lots of different ways to value a company, including looking at what your retention rate of subscriptions are, if you're on subscription model, or if you're doing work for hire, then that's a slightly different model. So yeah, lots of different ways to value a company, and basically come and have a chat, and we can chat about what might be the right model for how to value your company. If there are any other questions, I'm not seeing any. There's some that my boss has put on here, so I'm not going to answer them, because yeah. So there's one there, sorry, about we hear from our accountants once a year. Is that what you'd expect from a business advisor? So that's actually a nice segue into the slides. Was that you, Simon, who put that on? So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the winding road of an entrepreneur, a founder, or an exec of a gaming company. And I guess the metaphor I always think about is that you don't, as a founder, you don't always know what the end destination is, but you might know what country you're trying to get to, or roughly where you're going to get to, but maybe the route isn't as clear cut as what you think it is. There's obviously lots of late nights and pizzas and used pizza boxes in the back of the van and so on, very similar to developing a game. But you go on this journey, you, yourself, your co-founders, your team, on this long and winding road, and hoping that you get to somewhere that you hope to get to. So where does an accountant fit? And as I say, I win for getting dog into a finance presentation. And I guess I see the role as a business advisor as being in that passenger seat with you. We can't drive the car, but ultimately we're there with you to help you. There's 3 other ways that I would say we would help you, but it's that kind of companionship along the way, because ultimately we, as a business advisor, we can't do it, but we want to help you and help you navigate that journey, and play our role. So the first role I see myself as doing is asking, are we still flying in, or are we still going in that right direction? And that can often be quite a hard conversation with a founder. They know their business better than anyone, but it's that critical challenge to say, okay, if we continue down this path, what does that look like? And is that what you're wanting? Is that what you're trying to achieve? Or have you thought about taking this other route to get to the same end destination? And it's often that little bit of a different perspective can also maybe shortcut a corner, or actually take you the correct route as you develop as you develop the game or develop your tech company or whatever it is that you're looking to achieve. And I think by being a pilot, having looked into a lot of like accident reviews and so on, the biggest thing that pilots forget or can't deal with is when the stress levels in the cockpit go so to a level and they don't then pass the power between each other and they don't do their necessary jobs. So the easy thing to do in that situation is just press autopilot and hope that the computer or the algorithms will sort it out. But actually, the benefits of using your colleague or a support network you have around you can actually help you solve those problems and make sure you get to your end destination on time or as close to on time as possible. Everyone loves a travel itinerary, right? I certainly do. And we were just chatting, actually, I'm going away on holiday soon as well, on the itinerary, accountant, spreadsheet, big long list of destinations, right? Not a surprise. But the point there is, from a business perspective, you need to be doing the same for your businesses as well, to be thinking, okay, we've got various milestones or various destinations as part of our journey. What are the checkpoints? What are the costs that are coming in? What is our route and how do we navigate that? And that itinerary will help you build out, whether it be a business model, a financial projection, whatever it is, but actually breaking it down into the travel story of your company will help you just form that business plan or forecast going forward. And that's where an accountant can really come in and help, or a business advisor can come in and help, is making sure that all the steps of the journey are there. And then the final thing, another dog, is about a bag packer. Not saying that I'm going to make the tea for you. Well, happy to make the tea, but it's that bit of making sure that you as founders or business leaders have all the tools that you need in order to succeed. So whether that, like I say, if you're pulling together a financial model, right, that sounds really daunting to a lot of founders, and it is. It's quite it's in making sure that the company's finances are strong enough to support the growth or where you're going on that journey. But if your advisor equips you with the right tools in terms of the right accounting software and the support that then gives you that platform to make that as smooth as possible and to make those bumps on the road as smooth as possible, then that's a role that I think we all have to play as accountants. And I use the dentist analogy, and actually I think it resonates that when you go in for your annual checkup at the dentist, or rumour is going to 2 years, but annual checkup, you always kind of go into once a year. You go in, you think, oh my God, this is going to be painful both for my mouth and my wallet. Get in, get out. Hopefully the dentist doesn't notice that, and all I need to do is a bit more flossing, and that happy days. We're trying to remove that stigma from accounting, or to try and show that it's not actually a painful experience. We should be there to support you as you go. As you figured, I quite like dogs and I quite like travelling, so I thought I'd finish on a slide which has my dog on it. So this is Whisper. She's 2 years old now, over 2.5 years old, and she equally likes her travel. It adds a hell of a lot of complication onto my travels to try and fit her into them as well. But yeah, I guess the key takeaways for me are the role of the advisor for me is similar to what Pete was saying, is looking out for those unintended consequences of a few things that could just quite quickly change the deal or your progress and what you're trying to achieve, but not doing it in a way that's daunting. We want it to be that actually we're there as part of your journey and making sure that you can benefit from the advice that we can give you and support along the way. But if anyone does have questions, I'll be monitoring the slide. I'll put it back up, and if you want to have a come and chat with me after, I'm more than happy to. I'll be here till later on this evening. But thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan. I've also just been informed that dinner is being served within the next break, so that's something to get excited about. So up next we have, I actually have very little information on our next speaker because he's a very late entry, as he's just offered to get in touch yesterday. So I'm not even sure if he's in the room because I don't know what he looks like. But up next we have Peter Jan Goossens from University Hospital Brussels, and he's going to speak about medical uses for VR. So can we please welcome to the stage? Yeah, he's here. Okay, Peter.
Pointer. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm a bit of a late and odd goose indeed in the club because I'm not a game developer at all. I'm a nurse. But today we'll have a little talk about the applications that I personally have experience with of gaming and VR in medical setting. More in a way of the effects it can have on diminishing pain and anxiety in patients undergoing various procedures. So I'm guessing, all right. So I'm a nurse in the cardiac catheterization laboratory, which is a sort of an OR where they do various procedures under local anesthesia to do various examinations of the heart. We do diagnostics and interventions, but I won't bore you too much with all that. So this is my team as well. Well, not my team, but my partners in crime. I'm so happy that they support me with all my weird things that I want to do in the cath lab. So the reason I'm talking about this is I'm a final year's master's student, and I'm doing my scription, my thesis about the use of VR during these elective procedures. But I've also performed various literature reviews in process of attaining that degree about the applications of gaming and moreover VR in the medical field to counteract pain and anxiety. So this is what we'll go over. Why is it useful? How does it affect pain perception? How do I use it in daily practice in the cath lab? How is it used in a burn wound center where I have extensive experience with it during my internship? And how can it be used in the oncology setting? And then some considerations when you would think of designing or coming up with a tool to be used in these settings. From my perspective, obviously, because programming language and everything is basically me looking like Neo looks at the screens in the Matrix. I don't understand anything about it. So, a lot of patients experience anxiety in the hospital, which is quite common, but it's not always as harmless as it seems, because that anxiety has has a lot of medical consequences as well. So if you can have a tool that has very little side effects that can have a positive impact on these, you can positively affect the outcomes as well, which are medically relevant. You can increase patient comfort, but you can also increase their healing times and make them medically more healthy. So how does it work? I won't go into too much detail because I don't know if this is so much interesting to you guys, but a theory is that you have the gate control theory, which is that there's only a finite amount of signals the brain can process at a given time, and it can upregulate or downregulate signals that it thinks, yeah, I'm not gonna do this too much, or this seems nice, let's do that. So if you flood someone's system with a lot of positive feedback, a lot of positive stimuli, the negative ones will fade out. You won't be able to block pain completely because miracle drugs don't exist yet, I'm very sorry. But what you can do is, when someone's experiencing pain during a procedure, it might look like this, the sharp edges, like they're in a lot of pain. But what a system like games and VR can do is just flatten it out slightly, so you don't have this, but it will go, and it will become tolerable, where the other one will be above the tolerable threshold. And you can also help them escape a stressful setting, because a hospital is not really such a happy place to be. I do love my job, colleagues, so. But, oh, sorry about that. Oh, thank you. So you can help them escape their room, because some patients are treated in isolation. And if you're in one room for 6 weeks, you really do want to escape it, but more on that later. So how do I use it in the cath lab? patients undergoing procedures there need to remain still on a table. Sometimes they're even completely covered in a blanket when you're doing an operation such as the placement of a pacemaker. That means someone is covered with a sheet that goes on top of their head, so they're basically just completely cut off. This is quite claustrophobic. So with a VR headset, you can give them something a lot more fun to look at. The application we're using is made by OnComfort. I'm not here to make advertising, just talking about the system we use. So what they get to see in this particular simulation is this. They go underwater with a submarine, and they get to see nice corals, nice views. There are auditory cues to help them, that talk to them, give them suggestions on how to breathe, and they follow a whale that shows up, and the rhythm of the tail that the whale has also is the perfect rhythm to breathe on, to be relaxing. So this can last up to 2 hours. For me, what I found is 1 hour would be the max that a patient could comfortably wear it, but it can vary, but that would be a threshold. So there's also another simulation in this one, and that's that you have a walk in a forest where you follow the seasons, and the breathing rhythm is then simulated by the smoke coming out, because it's cold outside there, but it's made cozy. On those ways, you have a non-forcible way to help someone with control their breathing, because patients still need to remain still. And weirdly enough, if we put on the headsets, very few of them look around, very few of them start moving. They actually remain very still, because these simulations are designed to make them focus on one thing. For example, here you have the whale. They can look around a little bit, but they don't need to move their head all too much. Because you can imagine for some procedures it might be quite difficult if a patient would start like, yay, whale, and start grabbing at stuff. We have not had that happen, luckily, but I know of some cases that it did. But in these simulations, so far, it has not happened yet, luckily. Otherwise, we have angry doctors. So in the Burn Wound Center, I did an internship there, and burns are one of the worst injuries, wounds you can have, because they take a very long time, and they affect a lot of children as well. And they're extremely painful, especially when you're changing the dressing of those wounds. Now, you can imagine it's not a fun sight either. So if you have, for example, an 8-year-old looking at his leg, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but you can imagine that it's not really pleasant to look at. So when you give them VR headset, they see something completely different. They don't have to look at it. They're distracted from it. And it's in a way that has very little side effects. Because if you give them other stuff like fentanyl or other painkillers or even hypnotics, they can have harmful side effects, especially at young ages. So this is not meant to replace anything, but you can use it adjacent, and then you can decrease the dosages that you should be giving. Also, they're treated in isolation, so it can help them escape the setting as well. Now, not only VR is a good tool here, because you can see the iPad as well. For younger children, because VR is only safe, according to the FDA, for ages 3 and up. So they have iPads as well. And these have quite normal applications, but they're specially designed to be as interactive as possible and to engage as many senses as possible to fully immerse the patient. And below that, here you have a projector, which is a fun tool, but the problem is the interaction is very limited. You can alter the setting that they're in. You can alter the walls. You can see it's a fun show with hand puppets and stuff. It's a little fun if they get in, but as soon as you start changing the dressing, you notice that the interaction is not there, so their attention gets pulled away to the one thing that is a lot more in front of them. So not ideal, still a nice idea though, but it can be improved on. In the hematology setting, I know I mentioned oncology previously, but hematology is a subset of this, because I'm talking about patients usually with leukemia in this instance. So that's a form of cancer of the blood. And these patients are treated in isolation, and that can last up to 6 weeks or longer because they have no immunity whatsoever. And you can imagine if you have a 17-year-old in the prime of his social development, locked in a room for weeks on end, and he's at home for 2 weeks maybe. He can't really see anybody in those 2 weeks, and then he gets in another session for 6 weeks at a time. This has a detrimental effect on personal development of this young boy or girl or whatnot. So what you could do there is help them escape. Technology is there at the moment. You have a 360-degree camera. You can give it to his friends. They go to they can go virtually anywhere. They can go to a festival, take him with them. He puts on, or she or other can put on the headset, and they can come along with them. They can put the camera at home. They can be at home, all from the safety of that isolation room. But they don't have to keep looking at those four walls all the time. So what are the considerations you have to keep in mind when you would design or when you think about making a tool or application to be used in this setting? First of all, know the target group. The hospital has a wide variety of patients, so every group has different needs. Every procedure is performed differently, so you need to be able to cater to those needs, to either the patient, the procedure, and also the performing team, the doctors. They have requirements to properly perform it. For example, if someone needs to stay still, they can't be doing any weird competition games where you have to move a lot, because that would be problematic. And make it, with those limitations in mind, make it as immersive as possible, because you can still do it without making them move all the time. For example, we have eye tracking. So if they have a headset on, they can't move their head. You can still make a game that distracts them by having to look at things with their eyes. No, those are for newer models, but still, it might be a route for the future, though. I'm going to finish up real quick. So also be aware of nausea in VR, because it does happen. So make it the movements slow and natural. Hygiene, it needs to be fully disinfectable, because a hospital is full of germs, so it's an actual problem. And it's not just for younger audiences. I've used VR with patients up to 90 years old with success. So don't just target the young audiences. There's a lot of patients that are older, majority actually, and a lot of settings that could use a lot of help. So that was my talk. If you want to get in touch, feel free to talk to me later. And this is a QR code to my LinkedIn. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for having me.
That's incredible. Yeah, that was incredible. So, up next, unfortunately, he couldn't be here in person, but we have a pre-recorded talk from David Miller, who is the head of partnerships for War Child, who is our charity for our charity raffle. So, if you get that on screen real quick. We do have the raffle coming up at the end of the day. We have been running mini raffles throughout. So there is one in Edinburgh and there'll be one in Glasgow tomorrow, but tonight's the main raffle. We have a few of the prizes here. I forget what they are, but they're over here. And yeah, can we get the video up? I'm out of vamping. I'm gonna go sit down.
In games and the tech sector. He's head of gaming partnerships at War Child UK. Please welcome him to the stage.
Good evening, and hi everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk today. I'm not sure if all of you have heard of War Child, but I think there's some people in the room who have already supported us at some point over the last few years. So thank you very much if you have. Also, I know some of you have contributed to the raffle, which is going to be in aid of War Child this week. So thank you very much to everyone who has supported us, and thank you in advance to anybody who may be inspired to support us in the future. What I want to do today is just to spend a few minutes to, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about War Child does. I don't really have the time to do that. Really just like to give you an overview of the different ways that you could potentially work with War Child if you were that way inclined. We do lots of different gaming partnerships. We've been doing it for over 20 years. And I'm just going to give you a really quick whirlwind tour through some of the activations that we've done, big and small, and give you kind of a checklist of ideas that might just plant a seed. And that's really all I'm trying to do today. What do? We work with children in war zones around the world. We go to some of the most dangerous places in the world. Right now we're in Gaza, we're in Ukraine. We stick around after the media bandwagon has rolled on. There's terrible things happening right now in Gaza, but there's really bad things still happening in Yemen and Afghanistan and in places like the DRC. We don't just do emergency relief. We really focus on education and mental health and rehabilitating children who have been victims of war. That's our speciality. And I can tell you much more about that if you'd like to later on. But really what I want to focus on for the next few minutes is how we work with games companies. And I've got some different case studies. Some are really big and expensive in terms of time and cost, and some are really kind of quick and dirty from a development point of view. But the thing that I'd like to stress most of all is that we're really flexible. We've got a team of people that have worked in and around games. I've worked for games companies for over 20 years before I came to Warchild, and I've got a team of people who have worked as creators, who have worked in tech and have worked in the charity space. If you've ever played Football Manager, you've probably heard of Warchild, and actually millions of people know us because of this incredible game. They're our foundational gaming partner. It's been almost 20 years since Football Manager, Miles and the Colliers decided that they wanted a percentage of every copy of FM that's sold to go to Warchild. It's raised a huge amount of money for us, and it has really brought us into the space. So we're eternally grateful to those guys. As well as being in the game, as well as getting a royalty, we're also in the game, and that gives us a lot of opportunities as well. So, you can support us in soft ways. It doesn't just have to be money. I don't expect you to read all the words on this, but I wanted to also draw attention to the amazing guys in Poland at 11-Bit Studios. They have a game called This War of Mine. You may have played it. It's an incredible game that seeks to what it's like to be in a war. It's not an action game, it's more of a resource management game. They created a DLC with all of the revenues and profit actually coming to Warchild. That game's been out now for getting on for a decade, and it's raised over £1 million. These guys, they started off as 30 people. They're now over 300, and they're continuing to make games and to support us. They've recently got a lot of people out of Russia and out of Ukraine, and there's a lot of development in that region, and a lot of these Eastern and Central European developers are really keen to try to give back to their communities. Another example of that is wargaming. This might look like a weird bedfellow for Warchild, but it's not, because we both have the same principle, which is that tanks should only really be in a video game or maybe a museum, not in the real world. And by putting in-game purchases, in-game items, medikits and branded packs inside the games for the last 6 or 7 years, they've been able to raise, I think that's should now be well over £250,000. Easy, heavy lift for the studio. But as well as really big games, we've also worked with smaller games, with mobile games. This is a relatively recent example of the War and Peace game. These guys wanted to do something to support us. They created a medikit that was sold just over a weekend, just made a one-off event for a weekend. We jointly promoted it, and it raised a really nice amount of money for us. It doesn't have to be millions. It can be a few hundred or a few £1,000s. No idea is kind of too big or too small. We're really happy to have the conversation. If you guys have an idea, if you guys have a game, if you'd like to work with us in some way, we'll figure a way out to do that. As well as putting stuff in games, we do a lot of stuff with streaming, which is obviously a huge part of the gaming landscape today. Game Action is a kind of sub-brand that we launched a couple of years ago, which we think is a clever pun because it speaks to the action of the actual work that we do, the action in the field, but also game action when you play or when you watch. So this is a kind of a sub-brand that you might see popping up. It's been the name for sales, and it's been the name for streaming events. I mentioned Armistice because it's happening right now. This is obviously Armistice Week, if you will. This is a brand that probably is after Football Manager, is the brand that most people associate with Warchild. We've been running a sale with some deep integrations, but also just up Steam sales for about 7 or 8 years now. And this is actually live today. So the screenshot on the left I took on Wednesday night. You can see, and I'm just going to leave this up for a moment, you can see right in the bottom in the middle, that's actually, you know, the homepage of Steam. Steam, we have a very good relationship with Steam. We've worked with them for many years, and they really like to promote the sale. The significance of this is that as a developer that has got a game, it may be through its launch window. You may have, you know, spent all your marketing budget. It might be in its long tail. By partnering in one of our sales, it gives you a chance to get involved with a daily deal. It gives you a chance to get on the front page. You won't be the only game. This is the sale that's actually live right now until tomorrow night. We've been really blessed this year. We have about 100 games in the sale, but for 24 hours, it was daily deal, and we had an absolutely crazy amount of traffic for the first 24 hours. Anecdotally, we often get feedback from indies especially that even with a significant rev share to Warchild for that sale week, they might still significantly outperform the sales that they would get in a week, even on the net. So even let's say we do a 50-50 rev share on the sale, because of the volume that we're going to drive through Daily Deal and through all of the marketing that we do, you may still earn 2, 3, or 6 times what you may have earned in that week if you hadn't been in the sale. So it's a slightly technical point, one I'm happy to talk about later on, but you know, I'm really proud of that statistic because it means that we can give some value back to you. We're very happy for you to support us, but we're equally happy for you guys to get some kind of win out of this too. We were particularly blessed. It coincided with the Football Manager launch, so we were really all over the front page, as you can see. We do a lot of marketing around all of our sales. We have a good social media team. Within a few hours of launching the sale, we had 8,000 views. That's now up to about 20. That was just for one tweet. We do a whole range. We have a whole social media team that will push all of our activations really hard. I've missed a slide, but yeah, live streams and events. So this is a streaming event that we did a couple of weeks ago. We had some fantastic creators, some favorites of mine like Geeky Cassie there, who came together. We did a 7-hour live broadcast. It was a hell of a day, playing all different Switch games to raise money for Warchild. So we organize, you know, streamathons, and we organize big streaming events. If that's something that suits the kind of games that you're making, it's something that we can talk about getting you guys involved with as well. So super quick checklist while I quickly finish. Any way that you want to work with us, we're happy to have a conversation. So you could join a Steam sale, you could create a game or a DLC, you could get involved with live streaming, you can promote us, you can donate a percentage, you can sponsor. If maybe you've got some marketing budget from a launch, we can get you reach, we can get you eyeballs, we can do CSR work, and if you want to just make a donation, we're happy to take your money as well. So thank you for listening, and yeah, please find out more from me if you're interested. Thank you.
That's weird to clap for a
Thank you
pre-recorded
very
video,
much for
I
that,
guess.
David. I believe that
Well,
we
that
will
concludes.
have,
Is that the video? Still playing? Okay, yeah. Thank you. So, I do want to give a shout out to Warchild for being our charity sponsor for tonight, our charity raffle for tonight, because they are a fantastic charity and do a lot of good all over the world for kids in conflict areas. So that concludes this block of talks. So now it's time for anyone who ordered a ticket with food. It's time for food. So the food is happening upstairs. So if you guys can head out, we will convene again in another 20-30 minutes. But yeah, so thanks guys for sitting and listening to the talks. Cheers.